It's turbulent times for the celebrity church Hillsong. It's been revealed this weekend high-profile leader Brian Houston, who founded the hugely successful organisation, has now stepped down from its multiple boards. He faces court next month, accused of concealing child sexual abuse, a charge he denies. Tonight, though, we reveal more damaging accusations about the church. Two brave women who say they were violated by other Hillsong members. But what makes these attacks even more disturbing is the megachurch's response, an indifference to the victim's suffering so heartless it would surely make Jesus weep. Hillsong comes from pretty humble, some might say hokey beginnings. While many other churches date back thousands of years, Hillsong was only founded in the northwestern suburbs of Sydney 38 years ago. But since then, it's been a miraculous, meteoric rise for this Pentecostal movement. Spreading to 23 countries across the world, even filling the iconic Madison Square Garden in New York. But all that glitters ain't gold. With a wave of scandals hitting the organisation both in Australia.
Founder of Hillsong Church, Brian Houston, has this afternoon been charged for allegedly concealing child sex offences.
And abroad.
The affair that brought down Hillsong Church celebrity pastor Carl Lentz.
When you give somebody so much power, they become God to people.
Tonight, we uncover new disturbing behaviour within the Australian church. Young women violated.
And he pulled down my pants and my underwear. And he raped me at church.
And he grabbed me and put his hands like all around my waist, in between my legs, touching my crotch and my butt.
But what's almost as bad as the abuse is Hillsong's response. In some cases, protecting and still employing the men responsible.
Well, what they have done is engage in a textbook case of defending the organization rather than caring for a victim.
I don't care how you dress. I don't care what type of music you play. I don't even care as much about the messages you preach. If the least of those in your congregation and your community are not protected and not advocated for when they get hurt, then don't call yourself a church. Because Jesus was all about that.
And today we're going to be taking you on a facilities tour of Hillsong College at the Hills campus.
Like every arm of Hillsong, the church's big, shiny college in suburban Sydney has a slick promotional video touting its wares.
Right now, we are in Hillsong College's state-of-the-art television studio.
It's become a destination not just for students from around Australia, but internationally as well. American Anna Crenshaw moved to Sydney to study at Hillsong College in 2016, drawn to the church's vibrant energy. How would you describe the Hillsong community at that time?
In the beginning, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun, a lot of energy, just meeting new people and new friends from all around the world, and in Australia. It was really cool.
There was a strong social life for the young community at Hillsong College, but that friendly feeling was shattered in 2016 when Anna was at a gathering of several church members, including Jason Mays, a married Hillsong administrator.
I was sitting at a table next to my good friend, and then Jason was sitting at the end of the table. And through the night, then he moved and sat next to me alongside of the table. And that's when he put his hand on my thigh. And at that point, I just froze and didn't know what to do.
Feeling extremely uncomfortable, Anna decided to leave. But then, Jason groped her.
So he was still sitting and I was standing next to him getting ready to walk out, and he grabbed me and put his hands like all around my waist, in between my legs, touching my crotch and my butt, and he lifted up my shirt and was kissing my stomach like, "Don't go." And then I was trying to pull away from him, and then I did get away, and he was stumbling out the door trying to follow us, and he was saying, "I want to go with you. I want to go with you guys."
Do you have any doubt about what he was trying to do?
No, I think it's evident where he was heading and what he was thinking.
Anna felt violated and didn't know what to do. Eventually, though, in 2018, she decided to tell Hillsong's leadership about the incident. But she says she didn't feel supported and claims that after 3 months, they still hadn't even bothered to question the alleged offender, Jason Mays. On top of that, bizarrely, Jason's wife was then appointed Anna's new church leader.
You know, I felt like I was the one who was in trouble, not him. I felt like I was doing the right thing by coming forward, but they made it into like an issue that I was bringing up for no reason in their opinion.
5 months after reporting the assault to Hillsong, a despondent Anna reached out to her dad, who is himself a pastor at his own church back in Pennsylvania. When you boil it down, do you think Hillsong wanted Anna to be silenced?
No doubt. Hillsong Church would certainly rather not have this go public.
Ed Crenshaw was appalled when he learned about his daughter's assault and, more specifically, the inaction from Hillsong. Ed says it was only when he intervened that Hillsong finally handed the matter to police. Do you feel like if you hadn't have got involved that Hillsong would have just swept this under the carpet and never involved police?
I have no doubt about that. And even once the police were involved, they didn't fully cooperate. Everything is centered on trying to keep her story quiet for 5 months, to try to obscure it, to try to minimize it, and to try to get Anna, I think, ultimately, to drop it.
Jason Mays was eventually charged with indecent assault and pleaded guilty when the case came before the court here in Penrith. Given the Hillsong employee had now finally admitted to assaulting a young female student at the church's college, Anna Crenshaw assumed he would lose his job. She was wrong. In your mind, did you think, OK, that's it, surely Hillsong has to cut ties with him now?
I thought so, but then I found out from LinkedIn that he was given a better job during that time.
According to a statement from Hillsong, Jason Mays was given a second chance because, despite his guilty plea, some other people did not fully corroborate Anna's version of events. They further said, one of the cornerstones of our biblical beliefs as Christians is forgiveness and redemption. It is important Jason is allowed this as well. However, the Crenshaws believe Jason Mays was given preferential treatment because his father is Hillsong's head of human resources. What message does that send to other people within Hillsong?
I think as the father of a Hillsong college student, it says you can send your students to our college, but don't count on us to take care of them. And I think that's a horrendous message.
Is it a case of rules for some?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jason Mays is part of an elite culture where it's rules for thee, but not for me.
The decision to shelter Jason Mays upset a number of people within the Hillsong community, so church leader Brian Houston tried to clear the air. Houston, you might remember, is close friends with Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
You know, you just walk the path that God gives you.
A friendship that turned controversial last year when the PM tried to take Houston with him to a dinner at the White House. But when it came to the Jason Mays scandal, it was the Hillsong leader preaching diplomacy, reassuring staff that everything had been handled appropriately.
One thing I do know is we're not talking about a sexual predator here. We're talking about a young man, young married man, who did something stupid, got much drunker than he should, which is an issue we've got to keep addressing, and got himself in a bad situation. That's it.
But if you think that response was tone deaf, what Houston did next was even more outrageous. To deflect attention, he took to Twitter to share that Anna had also been abused as a child at her father's church in Pennsylvania. The Hillsong leader quickly realised the error of his ways and deleted the tweet. He admitted to his mistake, saying, "I foolishly included information that was wrong for me to share. To rightfully be more respectful of privacy, I deleted my comment. I apologise for any pain I have caused. I know better and will do better."
The tweet, while it was hurtful, it did just show everyone the attitude that I had been receiving from Hillsong for the past few years. And I think that apologizing just for the tweet without any apology for what has happened and what I've been through is very shallow apology.
Sadly, Anna's story is not unique. Since going public, she's been contacted by a number of other former Hillsong members who claim the church is more worried about protecting the brand than protecting its people.
And then after he was done, he just pulled up his pants and he just left without saying a word.
Hillsong has 30 churches in Australia. Not your traditional stuffy old buildings, but modern facilities like its Melbourne East campus that attract a modern young crowd. This woman, who we'll call Catherine, was one of the thousands drawn to what she thought was an energetic congregation that reflected her lifestyle. I'd imagine early days, it was called quite enjoyable.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I was making some great friends and I was having the time of my life, being a youth leader. And I love God, I'm a Christian, I love the church, and so to be able to help out like that was super fun at the beginning.
But one night in 2018, when Catherine was a volunteer at Hillsong, she stayed back late with the male worshipper to help pack up after a Bible study class. What happened next has left her traumatised ever since. She claims she was raped by a fellow Hillsong member.
And he closed the door and he turned off the lights. And I said, "What are you doing? Are you okay?" And then he grabbed my hair. He just pushed me onto this office chair. And I said, "What are you doing? Like, stop. No, like, this isn't happening." Because in that moment I knew what was going to happen. And he pulled down my pants and my underwear. And he raped me in our events office at church. Sorry.
A church must be the last place you would expect something like this to happen.
I had no reason to think that I wasn't going to be safe. It was really violent. It was just completely filled with like anger and rage and like just hatred. It was just the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my whole life because he was so much bigger than me. And then after he was done, he just pulled up his pants and he just left without saying a word. I felt really ashamed. I felt really guilty. You know, I was a virgin and that was the only sexual experience that I had ever had, and it was non-consensual. And I just wanted to pretend it didn't happen.
Catherine spent several weeks trying to forget the attack. But eventually, the emotional torment was just too much. So she says she reported the incident to a youth pastor. This is a very serious incident that you're telling them about. What was their response?
He wouldn't let me speak. I walked into there and I said, something really bad has happened. I am visibly upset. I'm shaking. I can't breathe. I'm crying. I'm hysterical in front of this man. And I'm like, he grabbed me. He hurt me. He did it. He touched me. And I was just going on. And every time I would say a word, he would say, that's not for my ears to hear. That's not for my ears to hear. You go sort that out with him. That's not for my ears to hear.
Catherine says that Hillsong leader made her feel like she was the problem, telling her she needed to focus on repairing relationships. She was so upset by that lack of support that in 2019, she decided to leave the church.
When the institution, I don't care whether it's Hillsong or any other church, when their first response seems to be more focused on protecting the institution than the vulnerable, wounded person, that is a problem, not just for any institution, but for an institution that claims to follow Jesus.
Boz Javidian is the grandson of famed American evangelist Billy Graham.
Christ belongs to all people.
Boz now works as an attorney for survivors of sexual abuse. He advised Anna Crenshaw in her case against Hillsong after the young American student was indecently assaulted in Sydney by a Hillsong staff member. Boz says he sees a pattern of behaviour in the way the Australian-based church goes about its business, trying to either silence or intimidate those who speak out about suffering within the organisation. In Anna's matter, Hillsong eventually commissioned a law firm to carry out what was supposed to be an independent investigation. But Boz claims it was more of a PR exercise designed to protect Hillsong's reputation. Specifically, he alleges that law firm was less about independence and more about intimidation.
Just because you call something independent doesn't make it so. This is the law firm that's allegedly conducting this investigation. Underneath their signature line, it states, the most feared law firm in the world. That's how this law firm, who's supposedly going to engage in an independent and an objective investigation into Anna's claims, you tell me what sexual abuse survivor is going to feel comfortable participating in a process that's led by an organization that defines itself in that way.
Given what you've seen in Anna's case, would you feel comfortable sending your children to study with Hillsong in Australia?
No. Absolutely not. Anna Crenshaw, when she moved to Australia as a young person, was no doubt a vulnerable person. And she wasn't protected, and she certainly wasn't cared for.
When Catherine heard about Anna's story, she mustered up the courage to share her own experiences on social media. And with those claims now being aired publicly for the first time, all of a sudden, Hillsong's leaders cared a lot more about what she had to say.
And after I posted that, I got contacted by Hillsong asking if I would sit down with them and have a chat about whatever it is that happened to me.
The impression I get from hearing that is that Hillsong didn't really care about your story until you started speaking publicly about it, and then they wanted to get on top of it.
That is exactly what happened. They do not care at all about the fact that I was assaulted. They just care about who I'm going to tell or what I'm going to do about it and how that will affect them.
So almost 3 years after Catherine first told a Hillsong pastor and was shut down, she was finally heard. At last, Hillsong reported the alleged rape to police.
I want my abuser to never, ever, ever have the chance to be able to do that to another person again. And I also want Hillsong and the pastor that I told to be held accountable for not doing anything about my abuse after being told that I was abused. And I want to make sure that they can never, ever, ever hide anyone else's abuse.
There are growing concerns about Hillsong's culture, not just at its churches in Australia, but overseas too, particularly in the United States, where the organisation's at times celebrity-obsessed mindset has upset many members.
Justin, this is your second time at Hillsong Conference?
Yes.
And what's different this time about being here?
I just think my faith grows every day. So my faith is stronger than 2 years ago, better, stronger, wiser, kinder.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're here at Hillsong.
Hillsong Church is no stranger to celebrity members, and perhaps none more famous than pop sensation Justin Bieber.
That's why I just want to love people more. I just want to love Carl more.
You're doing a good job with that.
So, man.
Justin, this is your second time at Hillsong Conference?
Yes.
And what's different this time about being here?
I just think my faith grows every day. So my faith is stronger than 2 years ago, better, stronger, wiser, kinder.
The man Bieber is snuggling up to is Carl Lentz, then the head of Hillsong's New York chapter.
I pray for fresh fire in this room. I pray for fresh grace in this room, Lord. May people write.
Hillsong's head office in Sydney had grand plans for New York. As the saying goes, if you can make it there, you'll make it anywhere.
New York, they were meeting at like a nightclub. I think that Hillsong New York City fed off that energy, right? Like, we're different, we're so cool, we're so edgy, you know, nobody else has church in a club, and that was really talked about a lot, you know what I mean?
Prayer meets party.
Right, exactly.
Megan Fallon started attending Hillsong New York in 2011.
God will bless you in areas you didn't even know you wanted to be blessed.
But she soon realised this was a church where leaders had a rock star-like reputation and the spending habits to match. As nanny for one of the senior pastor's families, she saw firsthand how donations to the church made in good faith by members were then blown on corporate credit cards.
It was constantly going out to dinner, nice lunches, breakfast, anything. So like if me and you went out right now and got dinner and we talked about church once, we could expense that on the church card, right?
So, I mean, you were being paid a pittance. How galling was it to then see all these church leaders who, you know, were dripping in designer brands and going out and living the high life?
Yeah, I mean, it really hurt. And I actually so I got paid comes out to about $4, but that's on the high end of some of the nannies that worked for the pastors. Like, some of my friends are like, wow, you're hitting big. And so it's really terrible. We're like scrubbing their toilets and taking care of their kids when they're out, you know. It was hard.
Megan says there was a clear delineation between the Hillsong elite, who hung out with celebrity friends, and the everyday members like her, who she believes were exploited.
Celebrity was built into the culture there. You know, Justin Bieber or Selena Gomez or, you know, basketball players, it was in the culture.
A church is a place of worship. It sounds like the leaders there at Hillsong worshipped celebrity.
Yeah, at first it's exciting and, you know, really cool. It's this thing that you buy into, and then when you look at it on the outside, it's like, wow, it's actually really ridiculous.
After seeing the inner workings of Hillsong, Megan says she and several others raised concerns about the culture to church leaders, but they were quickly dismissed. So in 2014, she quit.
The Holy Spirit can do that. Come on, somebody.
But the rot continued to set in for years under the watch of Carl Lentz, the leader of Hillsong New York. That was until late last year, when scandal engulfed the church, with allegations some male leaders were having inappropriate sexual relations with young female members, and other reports of extramarital affairs.
He said, among you there must not even be a hint of sexual immorality.
He was one of the country's best-known pastors, but this Thanksgiving, instead of healing a congregation, Carl Lentz is working on damage control.
Lentz was sacked by Hillsong for what it described as moral failings, as he admitted to cheating on his wife, with his mistress going public.
When you give somebody so much power, they become God to people. And I think people forgot the concept of religion and beliefs.
Not bad.
And I think that people look at Carl like he's God to them.
After Carl Lentz was fired, Hillsong opened an investigation into the culture of its New York church. But a number of its current and former members say it's just another PR exercise.
For so long, myself and so many other people were meant to feel like we were the problem, you know? And so for this to come out, it kind of was like, wow, like we weren't the problem.
How would you sum up the culture within the church at Hillsong in New York?
I mean, when I was there, toxic, you know, Hillsong Sydney, Hillsong Australia definitely fueled that flame. Carl Lentz was totally Brian Houston's golden boy.
You know, somebody once told me something that it was very simple, but has stuck with me for many years. They said, the higher you go up in church leadership, the less likely you are to encounter Jesus. And I have to tell you, with great sadness, that's been my experience in the work I've done for the past 30 years. And something has to change.
Boz Javigian has spent his career holding many church leaders accountable in a court of law. He says when it comes to Hillsong's head honchos, both in Australia and abroad, some deep soul-searching is required.
We've created a celebrity culture in the church. Pastors have become rock stars. Pastors oftentimes live in these big churches, live better than most of the people in their congregation. And you create that culture inside of a church that ultimately results in that pastor and those leaders becoming less and less accountable as they become more and more insulated. And that creates problems.
Do you believe that there is a genuine desire within Hillsong to get its act together?
I can tell you this, that you cannot begin looking at the future and planning for the future until you've properly addressed the past. If you love Jesus, then my goodness, start acting like him in the most important moments of life. And that is when you are approached by the hurting and wounded, stop everything you're doing and reach out and expend yourself for them. Isn't that what Jesus did over and over again? That's what the church should look like. And unfortunately, that's hard to find these days.
Hillsong rejected our request for an interview. We put several written questions to the church and it issued a statement declaring our investigation was gutter journalism, adding Hillsong Church takes any claim of assault extremely seriously and we allocate significant resources so that all can attend our services and events in a safe environment. But that's in stark contrast to the experiences of former Hillsong member Catherine, who's still trying to put her life back together following her time with the Australian megachurch. What do you think of Hillsong these days?
Hate is a very strong word, but it's the word that I would use. I hate Hillsong Church. It is not a safe place. I would discourage anyone and everyone from going there because it's not safe, whether you're a young person, whether you're an adult, whoever you are, it's not safe.
Hello, I'm Tom Steinfort. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au, as well as the 9Now app.
The legal team behind Hillsong Church founder Brian Houston has put forward its final arguments in the 69-year-old's cover-up case defence. Houston is on trial for allegedly concealing the historic sex crimes of his clergyman father, Frank Houston. He denies the allegation.
Arriving at court, the Hillsong founder greets the media storm with small talk.
Good to see you. Beautiful day.
That sunshine only adding to the heat as he dodged questions about his dead father's dark past what he knew and what he did or didn't do about it. 69-year-old Houston is on trial for allegedly covering up the sex crimes of his father, Frank Houston, who died nearly 20 years ago. The victim, Brett Senstock, was just 7 years old when the abuse occurred. Houston's legal team arguing the church founder's decision not to go to police when he learnt of his father's sexual offending in 1999 does not amount to a cover-up. Rather, he was respecting the wishes of the victim. He did not want any civil or criminal action taken against Frank Houston. Inside the packed courtroom, prosecutors today painted Houston as a dishonest witness. After his father made the admission, all the accused was concerned with was how it was going to be dealt with within the church, pointing to what they describe as clear evidence from the accused that he did not want there to be a criminal investigation. The closing arguments will continue tomorrow. The maximum penalty for concealing a serious indictable offence is up to 5 years behind bars. Paris Martin for 10 News First.
Hillsong founder Brian Houston has been cleared of covering up the crimes of his paedophile father to protect the global church. Frank Houston confessed to his crimes but died without being charged. And today, one of his victims described the life sentence he has endured.
Exonerated over the sins of his paedophile father. But Brian Houston could not ignore the painful past.
A lot of people's lives have been tragically hurt, and for that I'll always be very sad. But I'm not my father.
The man who created Hillsong found it not guilty of concealing the abuse of Brett Senstock, just 7 years old, when he was raped by Pentecostal pastor Frank Houston in the 1970s.
Confess your sin to the Lord and he'll blot it out.
Frank Houston was no pioneer for Christianity. His legacy remains a faded memory of a pedophile. Regardless of today's outcome, I have received a life sentence. Blaming the victim is as repulsive as the assaults themselves.
Brian Houston only learned of the crimes when his dad came clean in 1999. He claimed he never went to police because Brett Senstock told him not to. The victim was paid $10,000, which he believed to be hush money.
I found out that my own father, who I love incidentally, had conducted himself in a manner that was predatory.
Sermons like this seen as proof Houston Jr. wasn't hiding the truth.
As far as I'm concerned, this was a targeted attack. If I wasn't Brian Houston from Hillsong, this charge would never have happened.
Cleared of criminality, but Houston's been ousted by Hillsong for breaching its moral code over inappropriate behaviour towards two women. Just this week, the megachurch celebrated 40 years of faith, and its founder was left off the invite list. Would you do it differently today?
Did you make mistakes?
How is your relationship with Hillsong? For Brett Senstock, today's verdict is shattering. But for the first time in 50 years, a court has acknowledged the evil done by his dead abuser.
It should not be this hard.
Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
The Hillsong megachurch wants us to believe it's a place of love and caring. That's not what Anna Crenshaw thinks, though. When she was 18, she was indecently assaulted by a married Hillsong staff member. He pleaded guilty in 2020 and received a 2-year good behaviour bond. But the punishment did little to ease Anna's trauma. She wanted Hillsong to take some responsibility for its employee, so she took civil action against the church. Tom Steinfort has been following this story for 3 years and reports Hillsong's response to Anna has been, well, not very Christian.
It requires a lot of bravery to take on a megachurch.
Hillsong changed their plan in a ploy, I would say, to intimidate and silence me.
But American Anna Crenshaw is certainly up for the battle. She wants the Hillsong Church to take some responsibility for what happened to her in 2018 when she was indecently assaulted by one of its staff members. This week, she went to court to try to make them accountable. At first, it seemed the church was sympathetic to her situation. A deal to resolve her civil claim looked likely.
I was ready to have my fight for justice. Heading into court on Monday, we decided to come to an agreement, and we settled in principle.
Anna was confident everything would be okay. But then she read the fine print of the settlement and saw that Hillsong was making an outrageous demand, an order that she never speak about it.
To basically offer me hush money or threaten me into silence, it just shows that they really do not care about their people, which is really sad. This has never been about money for me. It was about justice and accountability and a hope that no one else would be treated the way I was treated.
Anna's Hillsong hell began in 2016 when she moved to Sydney to study at one of the church's colleges. But as she told 60 Minutes 3 years ago, one night in 2018, she was indecently assaulted by this man, Jason Mays. He was a married administrator at the church.
He grabbed me and put his hands all around my waist, in between my legs, touching my crotch and my butt. And he lifted up my shirt and was kissing my stomach, don't go. And then I was trying to pull away from him, and then I did get away, and he was stumbling out the door trying to follow us. And he was saying, I want to go with you. I want to go with you guys.
Do you have any doubt about what he was trying to do?
No, I think it's evident where he was heading and what he was thinking.
Anna reported the assault to Hillsong, but it would take more than 5 months for the church to inform police. Jason Mays was eventually charged and pleaded guilty in 2020, receiving a 2-year good behaviour bond. But Anna always wanted the church to also acknowledge its shortcomings.
It's been really hard. I know that I'm strong and I can handle this, but I shouldn't have to, and I don't want to. It's just something hanging over my head, and I think it's hurting not only me, but my family and the people in my life, and it's really sad.
In recent years, Hillsong has often been caught up in scandal. When controversial founder Brian Houston left the organisation in 2022, its new leaders promised reform in the church. For Anna, though, their insistence that she remains silent about what happened to her proves that this supposedly changed church hasn't.
I am in shock that they can still call themselves a church, to be honest, treating people like this. I think the whole basis of Christianity is caring for the vulnerable and caring for people. It's just so disheartening that they would do all of this and still continue to act like they're working in the name of God.
In a statement to 60 Minutes, Hillsong strongly rejected any suggestion that their attempt to settle was part of a ploy to intimidate or silence Anna. Her civil case against the church goes back to court later this year.
I think Hillsong robbed me of a chance at justice this week, and one I had prepared so hard for. And they gave me the false hope for it as well, a false hope of settlement. But I do feel good in a sense that I'm leaving with my voice. And that is just insurmountable. Yeah, I won't be silenced, that's for sure.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.
The enormously popular Hillsong Church proudly boasts it believes in people and their ability to influence the world with good. It was founded by the telegenic and usually talkative Brian Houston, but he didn't want anything to do with this story. And that's because it's about evil, the most unchristian behaviour imaginable, and his father, Frank Houston. He too was a high-profile church leader, but used his position and influence to abuse children. One of his victims was Brett Senstock, who, as a result of Frank Houston's depravity, has endured a life of misery, hiding in the shadows. But not any longer.
My name's Brett Senstock. I appeared at the Royal Commission as AHA. That was my pseudonym. And now I stand before you with who I really am.
It's taken a lifetime for Brett Senstock to come forward to tell his story. A lifetime of bruising battles and broken dreams.
I'm tired of people speaking for me and telling the world how I felt and how I'm feeling. Now I'm telling the world how I really do feel.
And how is that?
Pretty annoyed. Pretty annoyed. And not going away just yet.
Supported by his wife Lisa, and in a grueling fight against stage 4 cancer, Brett is speaking out in a last-ditch bid for justice.
He's a great guy. He's the love of my life. I want my husband to have justice. He deserves it.
This is the story of the actions that protected the pedophile who abused Brett. The decisions taken by Brian Houston, the founder and leader of the Hillsong Church.
Man, it makes some people out there so angry.
Decisions made while he was head of the Pentecostal movement, the Assemblies of God in Australia.
The devil does go around as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour.
The predator was his own father, Frank Houston, the high-profile pastor who used his position of power to sexually abuse young boys.
Confess your sin to the Lord and he'll blot it out.
Tell me about who you were before this happened to you. What kind of little boy were you?
Well, same as most little kids. Love the beach, I love the water. I was just a happy kid. I love nature.
Snapshots of Brett's childhood are contained in reels of home movies, footage he's not seen since he was a young boy.
That's me there. Oh, wow.
His family was keenly involved in the church.
As leader of the Assemblies of God in New Zealand, Frank Houston was considered royalty.
So is that Frank?
That's Frank Houston.
Is that how you remember him? During his visits to Australia, he would stay with the Senstocks, and night after night he would sneak into 7-year-old Brett's bedroom to sexually abuse him.
I could not speak, I couldn't scream, I couldn't push back, I just went rigid and I couldn't breathe. I was petrified.
Did he say anything to you?
You know, you're my golden boy and you're special to me and all these sort of things, which as an adult now I look back at, it makes me want to vomit.
Frank's abuse continued until Brett was 12. Terrified of telling his family, he bottled it up. Finally, at the age of 16, he told his mum. Her response was shattering.
She turned around and said to me that you don't want to send people to hell and stop sending them to the church.
Her first reaction
was that this would cause trouble.
Yes.
For the church.
For the church.
20 years later, without his knowledge, his mother suddenly revealed to the church what had happened to her son. The matter was quietly dealt with. Frank confessed and paid Brett $12,000 for his forgiveness. But there was no apology and ultimately no justice.
I would have expected some godly assistance, some help, maybe some counselling. It's just like it's been brushed under the carpet.
Confidential church documents reveal that in 1999, Brian Houston became aware of the sins of his father. By now, he is head of the Assemblies of God, and he and his executive are legally obliged to report Frank to the police, but they didn't. And it's clear that once they become aware of the extent of Frank's pedophilia, they go out of their way to avoid Frank's crimes becoming common knowledge.
They spoke in innuendo, they spoke in roundabout ways. So they told us something and told us nothing at the same time. And if I knew then what I knew now, I would have taken Frank Houston to the police myself.
Bob Cotton is pastor of a small Pentecostal church in Maitland, north of Sydney, a church in which Frank Houston was a frequent visitor.
We should speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves.
Right up until Frank's death in 2004, Bob Cotton regarded him as his hero.
God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power.
But it wasn't until 2014 when he heard Brett Senstock tell his story to the Royal Commission into Child Sex Abuse that he discovered Frank was a pedophile.
You were flattened.
Oh, disgusted. That could have been my child. That could have been my son. That could have been the child of somebody in my church.
Feeling utterly betrayed, Bob Cotton set off on a mission to find out what else he hadn't been told.
Our executive knew what Frank had done, yet did nothing to protect the innocent and did everything to protect the assets and cash of the institution and the reputation of Frank Houston.
Coming up, the explosive documents
They look after themselves. They must protect themselves.
that reveal how the church covered up the abuse.
Disgusted.
And the good Christian fighting for victims.
What's been done is wrong, and I'm so sorry for what's happened to that man.
That's next on 60 Minutes. When Brett Senstock revealed his story to the Royal Commission on Child Sex Abuse, Brian Houston found himself in the witness box.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
He told the Commission that when he learned about his father's pedophilia in late 1999, he was in no doubt what that meant.
At that stage, you certainly knew that that very serious allegations had been made against your father.
Yes, I did.
And that the allegations were likely to be criminal conduct of one
Yes, I
sort.
did. I didn't have any doubt that it was criminal conduct.
Right.
But Brian Houston took the view that it was up to Brett to report his abuser to the police.
Rightly or wrongly, I genuinely believed that I would be preempting the victim if I were to just call the police at that point.
What the church did do was strip Frank Houston of his credentials, and he retired on a pension. But they never revealed the awful truth of Frank's crimes.
Pretty well all started for me with this letter here, dated the 24th of December 2001.
The first Bob Cotton knew of any kind of problem was when he received this confidential letter from the Assemblies of God revealing that Frank had been stood down.
By now, the church hierarchy had known of Frank's pedophilia for 2 years, what they described in the letter as a serious moral failure.
We're talking about child rape.
We're talking about child rape.
It's a crime, not a serious moral failure. This is a criminal act.
Bob Cotton has since amassed a slew of other documents that paint a picture of a church executive determined to limit the damage. December 1999, Brian Houston calls a crisis meeting about Brett Sengstock. It's agreed minutes will be kept confidential and on a special file.
A single act of sexual abuse more than 30 years ago.
November 2000, Brian Houston becomes aware of more victims.
A total of 6 specific allegations have been investigated.
December 2000, the church goes into damage control.
Statement concerning Frank Houston. It will only be used publicly if rumours become so extensive.
December 2001, pastors learn of Frank's serious moral failure and are urged to keep quiet.
We cannot see any reason for this to be announced to your church or further afield.
I can't see how they could escape the fact that they had a serial child sex offender. They knew that there was more than one victim. They knew this was going to be a PR disaster. I see it purely as an act of self-protection.
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation.
The Royal Commission censured Brian Houston. It found he failed to report his father to police as he should have, and that he had a clear conflict of interest in heading up the investigation. How do you feel about the conflict of interest, the lack of publication, the decision-making?
Well, they look after themselves.
Is that your interpretation?
Absolutely, that they must protect themselves. I felt there was no interest in Brett, no concern for him.
After the Royal Commission, Brett Sengstock sought compensation, but his 2.5-year legal battle failed. Brett was unable to prove the Assemblies of God in Australia was responsible for Frank when the abuse occurred.
They've said that basically if I pursue it, they'll go me for costs, and what's happened to me now, I'll lose my house.
I mean, this is a church we're talking about, which is meant to be based upon a set of fundamental values.
Disturbed by what he sees as a denial of justice, New South Wales MP David Shoebridge has taken up Brett's case. 3 weeks ago, he used parliamentary privilege to raise his concerns.
The Royal Commission found that Brian Houston's response repeatedly failed the victim. It failed to report the matter to police, and he failed to deal with his own conflict of interest while leading the church. The findings provide a strong basis for prosecution under Section 316 of the Crimes Act for the failure to disclose.
I know that the defence put forward was that Brett didn't want anyone to know. Is that a defence?
The fact that one child or one survivor doesn't want you to tell police does not answer your obligations. Because the obligation of going to the police is to ensure that perpetrators are held to account and they don't abuse others. It's not just a failure to deliver justice for Brett, but it's a failure to provide the protective measures for others in their care.
It is now a police matter. This week they have confirmed Brian Houston is under investigation.
Excuse me, mate. Wondering if you'd like to sign my petition.
Spurred on by the story of Brett Sengstock, Pastor Bob Cotton has pounded the pavements.
I'm asking that the government increase the penalty for those who conceal child sex offences.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Campaigning for tougher penalties for those who conceal child abuse. A crusade that bore fruit just this week in New South Wales, where the maximum sentence is being raised from 2 to up to 7 years.
I'd like to thank the Attorney-General and the New South Wales Government for their continuing commitment to increasing the safety of our young children.
G'day, mate. How are you? Good, mate. Good to see you.
Bob Cotton and Brett Senstock are now good friends. The survivor and the pastor, brought together by a mutual desire for justice and the hope that Brett can find peace after what has been a lifetime of torture.
He needs to be apologised to. And if they won't apologise to Brett, I'll apologise to him. Because I'm part of the organisation that did this to him. And what's been done is wrong, and I'm so sorry for what's happened to that man.
I think the problem with this whole story is that everybody agrees that you were abused, that Frank Houston is a criminal.
Yes.
Everybody agrees. Nobody doubts your allegation.
No.
Frank admitted it, but that's where it ended. And nobody wanted to take any responsibility beyond that.
No. And I can't make it nicer, and I wish I could. But no, it's just the way it is, and you just got to walk with it and do the best that you can.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.